I got the hospitality blues. Now, I guess I'm just an old country hick, but all you folks that think you're sick better pay attention to what I've got to say. If you were going to go to some hospital, I suggest you think it over a little, 'cause I'm still recuperating from my hospital stay. Back about a couple of months ago, I had a little touch of lumbago, and I called on my doc to see what he'd suggest. And he said, man, it's plain to see, the hospital's the place you ought to be, 'cause what you need is good old-fashioned rest. Now, by the next morning, I felt pretty good, but I thought I had to go since he said I should, and I got to the hospital long about 9:45. Well, I got myself lost without much ado. Everybody I asked said they were lost too. Those halls and doors just seemed to have no end. The woman that admits you told me I was late, turned right around and said, have a seat and wait, so that's what I did for about 2 hours and a half. This making you wait, they got perfected. I got the feeling I was being neglected till this man came up and said something about private or staff. From the questions he asked in that interview, I figured he was sent by the revenue, and if I couldn't have talked, I don't reckon they'd have let me in. When he'd found out about my financial affairs, this nurse came in and took me upstairs and gave me a bed and a ward with 2 other men. Then she gave me this hospital gown to put on, and I figured she must not have thought I was grown. That thing was so short I had to leave on my pants. When those other men told me what they had, my chances of getting any rest looked bad, 'cause one had consumption, the other the St. Vitus dance. Just about time I got settled in bed, this boy in white walked up and said, I'm Dr. Smith and I got to run some blood tests. I said, wait a minute, fella, there's some mistake. My blood's all right, I just got the backache, and we had a big argument, and I come out second best. Now, he said he was a doctor, and I don't guess he'd lie, but I'm sure that the back of his ears weren't dry, and when I called him an intern, he said he wasn't that far yet. Everybody that's a doctor has to learn to be, but I don't like it much when they're learning on me, and from the way he was working, that's as far as he'd ever get. After he'd taken all the blood I could spare, he got a sheet of paper and pulled up a chair and said, what brought you here? And I told him my 35 Ford. He must have asked me a million questions more about every kind of sickness I'd had before, and every question that I asked him, he just ignored. Aunt Susie died of dropsy, but I'll never know what the devil that's got to do with lumbago, and the questions about my private life made me mad. When he finally got off of that talking jag, he pulled out a little black doctor's bag and gave me the darndest physical I ever had. He beat on me with a hammer and tickled my feet and did some things I better not repeat, and about the time he finished, another boy in white walked in. I found out that he was an intern there, and I want you to know he pulled up a chair and we went through that whole darn mess again. By the time I'd repeated my every disorder, I felt just like a tape recorder, and I asked him if the main doctor even knew I was there. He said, why do you ask? And I said, heck, if you don't hurry up, I'll be a nervous wreck. Then he said the main doctor was at a medical meeting somewhere. For the next 4 hours after his exam, I got a brain wave and one of them cardiograms and an x-ray picture of every bone in my body, I reckon. Whoever fixed my tray thought I was on a diet. There wasn't enough there to keep a small bird quiet, and it was made to taste so you wouldn't ask for seconds. As if I hadn't done seen enough action, those doctors came back and put me in traction, and the weights were so heavy they pulled me out of bed 3 times. By then my back was really hurting, and when they put me on a board, I knew for certain that their definition of rest was different from mine. Well, they left the room and I was dozing off. Then the man with consumption started to cough, and that other fella started having some sort of chill. When they finally got quiet, I dozed off again, and in a little while that nurse was back in and woke me up just to give me a sleeping pill. About 5 minutes after the nurse had gone, somebody down the hall cut a radio on, and so I rocked and rolled for the rest of the night. About 6 the next morning, that boy was back in, put a tube in my stomach and drew blood again, and the nurse gave me a shot that knocked me out like a light. When I came to, I thought I was in a tomb, found out they were taking me in the operating room, and I figured if I didn't talk fast, my goose was cooked. Well, it took me quite a bit of yelling and cursing to make them realize they had the wrong person, and I was fighting to get my arms and legs unhooked. Well, I jumped up from there, and I must have looked cute, running down the hall in my birthday suit, but I wasn't worried about my dress not being too formal. Well, I got to my room and put my clothes on, and without a goodbye, I headed for home, and after 2 whole months, I still ain't back to normal. Now, if it offers any sort of consolation, if you're half dead or need an operation, then you go ahead, 'cause, man, you got nothing to lose.
But if just a little rest is all you need, then if you go there, it's guaranteed you'll get the hospitality blues.